It's Saturday, April 26th, 2025. I'm still picking away at my deadouts, but I have a chance to finish this job today. And I have another perfect day for it. It's 12C. There's a bit of a south breeze. And I think they said today's high was forecast to 18C, which is really nice. It's not desperately hot, but it's nice and warm. But I need to show you something here that's developed over the day yesterday. I noticed they're done. They're done with the pollen sub. They're done with the pollen sub. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that they're not getting pollen. That means they're getting it from the trees. Willows and poplars. I don't know what all trees, but the trees anyway. So yeah, that's really good, because that's free. Unlike the stuff I feed them is not free at all. So I got to put that away now. It doesn't hurt to let it sit out. That blue feeder anyway, it's pretty secure. So that's all I've got to update. I'm just working away at these deadouts. Now I'm actually done with the deadouts. These are boxes and frames that are kind of left over from last year here. And I think some of them are pretty mothy, so I have some of that to clean up and whatever else. So I'm going to get to work. Thanks for watching. It's Sunday, April 27, 2025. I'm sure glad I finished my cleaning the deadouts yesterday, because today is not a nice day. It's 9C and there's a little bit of mist in the air, so it's quite chilly out. I was just out at the apiary, and there's no life out there at all. The bees are hunkered right down. I only have one little thing I want to do today. Well, actually, you could say it's three, but it falls under one category. That's just a few repairs that I have. Woodenware gets older, and it always needs a little bit of TLC over time. You can see this is one of my older. I can tell that this is one of my, probably either my first or second year building covers, so this is pretty old. This goes back to perhaps as far as 2016. So that's 9 years, and you can see that one end has suffered and broke off. So I'm just going to cut that square and add a piece of lumber to that. And these boxes, this box, you can't even see what part is broken on this box, because it kind of just came apart on me. This piece came right out. Now I've got the piece and it's perfectly sized and fits in there perfectly, so I can just glue that. That'll be really easy. This box just suffered a bit of a breakage here at the top edge, so I can glue that on too. And you know, gluing these is actually better than new. The glue is stronger than the wood, so it's not a problem there. Otherwise, I'm kind of taking Sunday off. You know, I've been at that quite a while. You can see I've got a pretty good sunburn being out there for a number of hours. But I'm just going to do this today, and then I'm going to go spend time with my wife and relax. Tomorrow's a really big day for us, as you may not know. You won't be seeing this until at least the weekend, so we'll have the results by then. But tomorrow is our federal election, so we get to go and vote and have our say as to how our country is run, hopefully. All right. I'll show you how I'm going to do some of these repairs. The lid repair is a little bit involved, so I kind of enjoy repairs. They're time consuming because it's an exercise in problem solving. you have to know how to, you know, figure out how to cut things and then replace parts and whatnot, and maybe sometimes a non-standard way. So I'll show you how I'm going to do this. Okay, so here's the lid, and you may or may not be able to see it very well, but the way I construct my lids is the plywood is actually rabbited into the end cleat here. And I could do that on the repair, but to make the repair easier, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut this straight and then add just a plain piece of wood in there. So in order to do that, I'm going to cut, I'm going to use this shim here. I'm going to use this shim here as my reference and cut everything on the outside. So that's 3/4 of an inch. So that's the whole board. I'm going to cut right up along here and then right up to the bottom of the top cleat. So I need to run that through the saw this way. And in order to do that, you can see it's not sitting flat. I need to get a piece of wood that is 3/4 of an inch, put that on there so that sits under the shims and makes it sit flat. I have another little bit of a problem here, is that because this is one of my first covers, my end cleat is a little bit longer. I typically have made these 2 inches, which means it extends only 3/4 of an inch down there. So to start with, I'm going to run this along the fence and cut this off at what is now my standard 2-inch end cleat. That's an inch. So my lids now are 3/4 of an inch. They seem to work just fine at 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to do that as my very first cut. And now, because I want that to sit nice and flat on there, I want this to be clean. There's always propolis everywhere, right? So just clean this up with you need a beater chisel. You need a chisel you don't care about in your shop. But don't make every chisel a beater chisel. You need some of them that are good. Now, I want to set the outside of my blade 3/4 of an inch from the fence. And the depth will be the top of the plywood. So the depth will be the bottom of the end cleat, which is actually pretty high, but that's because I've got the spacer in there. Now, I've got a pretty good blade in here. It's a rip blade, but it's not the sharpest blade I have, because I am going to end up cutting some nails. And I'm also running my saw in bypass mode as a result. So I want to be very careful. I can see that cut is a little shy, but I can make up for that this way. The next cut is going to be in this direction to get the last of that out of there. Theoretically, I can set the saw at 3/4 of an inch. Set the fence at 3/4 of an inch. And it's going to be 3/4 of an inch tall. My little ruler is 3/4 of an inch thick, so I can use that. You can always go a little deeper, but you can't back up. So I'll run that through this way, and it's important you line up your workflow so that when the piece is free, you can see that when I was cutting this way, my offcut was between the blade and the fence, but it wasn't free. So now that I'm cutting this way, this offcut's going to be free. I don't want that to be trapped between the blade and the fence. I want it to fall free. The blade may push it out, but it won't be as violent as it might otherwise be. That worked out pretty good. There's a little bit of wood holding that on there. I might be able to clean this up by hand. So you can see what I've created there now. I can clean this up by hand. This is not a good chisel for this because it's not very sharp. It's not a good idea to push a chisel toward your hand. Chisels are typically very, very sharp. This one's actually, it's not very sharp. Okay, so now we can fit the new piece in there, like that. And I'll leave it long, and then I just trim it at the end, just kind of like I do when I make these things new. Just a little bit of glue. Of course, we always need good quality waterproof glue. And try not to get it on the table saw. It should be 16 5/8 wide. Which it is. I want to make sure I run this in bypass mode too, because this is fresh glue. And I've blown my brake quite a few times with fresh glue. I have a buddy with a dipper, and he'll dip repairs for me like this, so I may set this aside until I can get that to him. That's a pretty good repair. Like I say, I've got plenty of covers on hand, so I'll just clean this up and take it over there for dipping. Alright, this one should be easy. I won't even have to staple it or anything, I'm sure. I think it's kind of the end of a knot. I can just run a little staple through that to clamp it. Hopefully it doesn't blow apart on me. Okay, that's good. Now this has got two problems. It's broken here, but it's also broken way down here. Typically I'll rip that right off so I can get some glue in it. Take this off to start with. But I don't think I can just rip that off. I'll see if I can just get some glue injected down in the crack. That's all that's on the docket today. Finally going to get a Sunday of rest that's nice. So kind of one of the next things I need to do is get some of the hardware for the warming cabinet, put that together. Told the guy I'd have that to him early May, and he was good with that, but I don't want to let him down. Thanks for watching. It's Monday, April 28, 2025. It's a really cold day out. A stiff north wind, and it was, I think, -1 when I was having my breakfast, and I don't think it's much warmer now. But yesterday I did some repairs here. I shared some of those with you, but then I did a couple more. I'll share this one with you first. There's just a couple of boxes. I'll put things up by the shop, and then when I want to do repairs, I go and collect them. So this box, this was pretty easy because this is the bottom. I just cut that piece off of there. There was, because there was this big knot, I think there was a chunk missing out of here or something. So I just cut that off, added a new piece, glued it, just a couple staples there, and that's good to go. Now, the other one was a little less straightforward because it's really the same repair in essence, right? Just kind of cut the end off, but you can see here, this is the top. You can see the frame rest on this side. So I need to effect a frame rest in this. You know, I had different options to do this, but I decided the way it was compromised and whatnot, I had to cut this right down and put a new piece in here. And I can't just rabbet that right across because then I'll have a gap in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to run a rabbet with my router. And I've got a really nice rabbeting set here. So it's just a straight cutter with a bearing on it. And the kit comes with different sized bearings. And the different sized bearings will then give you a different depth of rabbet. So I'll show you what's going on here. Okay, what needs to happen here is the bearing needs to run on the flat, and then the cutter will cut that rabbet. Now I could cut that the way it is, but I don't think it's quite deep enough. So I need to put a smaller bearing on there. And the kit comes with 4 different sizes of bearings. And those sizes give you kind of standard increments, 5/16, 3/8, ½ inch depth of rabbets. This is one reason I say that if you don't own, like if you're setting up your wood shop, you get yourself a good router. and invest in some nice bits. These green bits that I have, they're really nice. They're Lee Valley bits. They're very sharp, they're very high quality. And don't be afraid to pay for bits, because that'll make your life so much nicer with nice bits. Just about any router will do. Don't get something crappy cheap like Black & Decker or something. You know, get a good name. Don't ask me what a good name is. Black & Decker's not a good name. DeWalt makes some nice routers. I think the Milwaukee Cordless is a nice router. Okay, so I'm going to try this again against that. And it looks to me like that's the depth I want. It might be a little shallow, but that's okay. If it's a little shallow, I can always make it deeper somehow. Okay, so I have an option as to how I'm going to do this. I can get my router, and I can run my router along this, and that's pretty good because it's 7/8 wide here. I think I can bounce my router on that. You know, I set the depth and take it out. I could also try to do it on the router table. I don't think I'm going to do that. That's a lot of work to set up just for one cut. So I'll get out my Porter cable. My Porter cable has, these are 1/2-inch shank bits. They're really nice and sturdy. But I need my Porter cable. My little hand router won't manage a bit that big. So if you're looking for this set, this is the Lee Valley number for the set. Maybe not very clear. This is a good old Porter cable router. It's really not that old, but it's just a good workhorse router. Nothing fancy about it. So that's a 1/4-inch collet. That won't work with the 1/2-inch bit. And that's why I have a 1/2-inch collet that I can put on there. Here's a tip about routers. Let me get this collet. What you do not want to do with your router bit, you see how they've painted that? That's kind of an indication of what you need to do. The transition between the shank and the bit part is not a sharp transition. It's curved. It's got a radius to it. So if you push your bit right up in the collet and tighten it, the top of the jaws will grab that little radius and it won't actually tighten on the bit. So you don't have to leave necessarily that much space. You know, even that much space is enough. So that's definitely what you want to watch for. Because a router collet, it works a lot like a drill chuck, but it doesn't have much travel. It only has maybe 1 millimeter or less of travel to it. I need to measure down. The bearing is going to determine how deep the rabbit is, but I have to set the depth for how tall. I guess, you know, deep is subjective, right? Just get rid of the propolis so I get a good measurement. Yeah, that's 5/8. Okay. So I want 5/8 here. This is difficult because I have a scale on the end of my ruler that I can use to do this, but it doesn't go to 5/8. It only goes to 1/2 inch. But I think if I went to 5/8 off the top, I don't know how much bit I have. I only have a 1/2 inch of bit. So what we want to do is go less than half, and then I'll adjust it to exactly the height and finish it off a second pass. So this is actually like 3/16 or so. That's okay. I really want to clamp this down nicely. Just not going to move around there. Now I have to judge my extents here manually. I've got no stop, so I have to watch that and just cut that in. And it's also going to make a curved rabbit at the end. It's not such a big deal. If I want that squared off, I can do that with a chisel. Okay, so this is the sort of thing I'm going to be doing. Around like this. And you can see which way that cutter cuts. It cuts this way. So I want to move against the way it cuts. If I go this way, it'll grab the router and want to push it away. All right, here we go. That's pretty nice. I barely touched that side there. I didn't touch it here. A little wobbly at the beginning. Didn't hurt anything. Just when it came off of here, I wasn't holding it right and it tipped. So now I need to dial in the bit to a 5/8 depth. So even though they didn't finish the scale here, which they should have, they could have easily given me a 5/8 mark there. Because this is exactly 3/4, then what I need is an 1/8 short of 3/4. So I can register from here all the way up to here, and that's my 5/8. And once again, this is not fine furniture. So that is just about exactly bang on. It is exactly bang on, but good enough is good enough in this scenario. And then we'll make the second cut. So you can see if I had gone full depth the first time, wouldn't have worked because I would have run out of bit. I would have ended up leaving a sliver at the top, which would not have worked out at all. Okay. That looks really deep to me. So, that's 5/8. It's 5/8. Bang on. All right. That is really nice. It's not perfect, made 2 cuts, so it's not perfect, but it's really nice. I'm just going to clean up the corners with a relatively sharp chisel. A dusty sharp chisel. A dusty hammer, anyway. Tommy McDonald would say, that's a wicked, wicked chap. That pine is really soft. Very easy to cut. Easy to split, too. I'm not that good with the hand tools, but it's important in your woodworking to practice hand tool work. Certainly don't be afraid of it. Quite often, we think we always need to use power tools. Nice thing about hand tools is you don't get all of that dust in the shop like you do with the power tools. It's practically dust free. Okay, that's really nice. I can see a little burr right there. Just take that off. That's awesome. So that finishes the repairs for today. And I was saying yesterday, I think, I kind of enjoy repairs. It allows me to slow down. It's not just huge production work where you're doing the same thing for hours on end. And it's an exercise in problem solving. You know, I love to use my table saw, I love to use my power tools and things, but sometimes it just comes down to something like that and just get out the hand tools. What I didn't show you is years ago when I started using my ProVap oxalic acid vaporizer, I was injecting the acid vapor in kind of in the center, in the back of the beehives, which I think is a mistake. I highly discourage people from doing that. So a lot of my boxes have holes in them as a result. So I took the opportunity. I found appropriately sized drill bit and a piece of dowel, and I just drilled a hole. I just drilled a hole, glued in a piece of dowel, or glued in the dowel, and then flush trimmed it. Flush trimmed it with my little flush trim saw. This is a nice little saw. They're not expensive, and boy, when you need to flush trim something like that. So this is a Stanley saw. 20-331. Yeah, so that's a good little tool. What you have to watch, and I broke the first one I got, is it's very thin here. If you end up flexing that a lot, you have to remember this is a pull saw. It doesn't work with pushing it like a regular hand saw. So you need to pull it to make the cut. And if you start pushing it, then you'll break it like I did my first one. So, all right. I need to go putter at some other stuff today. Hopefully I can do it without going outside too much because it's really cold outside and super windy. I'd love to work in here longer. Thanks for watching. Take care and have fun. It's Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. I've just been treating my bees. This is why I sound like I'm out of breath. It's just a little harder to breathe in my respirator. That respirator works really well though. So I just did a round of oxalic acid vapor. And boys, it's been cold. It's about 3 degrees C right now, and you know, it's a nice bright sun, but a little breeze, and it's not warm, but it's warmed up since, you know, the last day or two. yesterday it was extremely windy and cold. Yeah, I spent most of my time inside. We did have to go out and vote yesterday, and a couple other things, but we tried to stay in where it was warm inside. So that's all I got to report. Just using my, boy, do I ever like these InstantVap vaporizers. You can see them there, this one and twin InstantVaps here. They're fast, they're easy to use. I come out here, I've got, I don't know, 75 or so colonies, and total time from the time I arrive to the time I leave is less than an hour. So that's really helping me keep my bees healthy. I've got my schedule laid out every 5 days for this. I don't think that really compromises the bees, but I need to get back in the bees as soon as the weather warms up. See how they're doing, because boy, it's been cold. It has been really cold. And like I say, yesterday was so windy, I had to come out here a couple times and check the pails, and kept blowing some pails off. Not very many, but still, any is too many. I put a brick on this one because it got blown off. But anyway, that's the apiary today. I've got some errands to do and whatnot, so we'll catch up with you later. Thanks for watching.